saw the New Kids on the Block when I was 8, and I'm really embarrassed that people know this about me. And I say it's a life-changing event, but not because of the music, not involving the music whatsoever. It was one of my first concerts, and all I remember was showing up and just being in complete awe of the whole thing, and seeing these girls passing out in my row and being pulled out on stretchers, and I thought, this is the greatest thing. From that day on, I kept telling my parents I wanted to be a famous singer when I grew up. I think that there are people who are just born to do certain things in life, and for instance, my dad is an amazing plumbing contractor, and I think he was born to be a plumbing contractor, and I just happened to be a singer. I had a very active imagination, first of all, and I always had this need to get my feelings out and share them, and it so first started with writing, and after I would start writing, I would start hearing melodies in my head, and I would start trying to find words to them and start making up these songs before I played any instrument. So I would write down the music and begged my parents for an instrument, and at first I wanted a piano, and they said absolutely not. There's no room for it in the house, and so finally, years down the road, right before my 14th birthday, they were just finally sick of hearing me beg for a guitar, and they got me one, and I immediately started teaching myself how to play. It was the most exciting thing, and my parents definitely knew I was serious, because they said I no longer was sitting out watching TV at night. I would just disappear into my room. I saw some ads for summer festivals, and it said they needed local talent to play, and so I sent in a demo tape. It said send in a demo tape, and went to my parents first actually and said, Mom, Dad, I need to make a demo tape. And they're like, what are we doing? Who is this girl? Why us? And so my parents said, all right. And I got my voice teacher, Gina, and her husband to help me record a 3-song demo of my songs, and told my dad and my mom, please, will you send this off? So I got this call back, and the people from the festival said, this is great, we want you to play. So, how many passes do you need? How will you get, do you know which gate to arrive at and everything? My dad was like, well, we need passes for her mom and me, I'm her father, and her family. And the person on the other end was like, wait, your father, how old is she? And he's like, 14. And the guy was just like, oh, we can't have a 14-year-old playing on the main stage. So they moved me to the little small children's stage by the petting zoo and the train that would go around in circles. And but what was great was I went up and I was sound checking, and the 2 sound guys said, you shouldn't be playing on this stage, you can't be playing on the stage, and took me and set me up so I was able to perform acoustic between the times when the big bands on the main stage were setting up. So I got upgraded on my first gig, and after that it was school lunches, it was more art festivals, it was state fairs, it was store openings, anything I could get my hands on, I just had to play. One day I get this call from a family friend of ours, and she worked at a timeshare resort. She sold timeshares, and they have this thing where they say, if you come in to take a tour of our property, we'll give you $100. And it's a long tour, but this guy came through and said, okay, $100, I'm in, and took the tour. And our friend started asking him, said, where are you from, what do you do? And he said, I'm from Los Angeles, and I'm in the music business. She's like, hold on, wait a minute, I know this girl. And he's like, oh great, why did I even have to speak up? Why did I have to tell him, why couldn't I be a teacher? And she says, there's this 14-year-old girl who I know, she plays guitar and writes music, and you have to meet her. And he said, well, here's my card, just have her mail something. I really don't feel like doing that today. And they went off on the tour. And meanwhile, she's on the phone calling me saying, you better get back here, you better get down here before they're finished because you have to meet him and bring a demo tape. And so here I am running frantically around the house, and I wasn't old enough to drive, and my parents were not home, and I'm going, I can't get there on time. How am I going to get this guy my tape? And we live by a golf course, and so a lot of people they actually own their own golf carts. And I went outside, and I went to my neighbor's house, and I saw a Harley Davidson golf cart, and the keys were in the ignition, and I went, you know what, thank you for letting me borrow it. And I jumped in it, and without permission, actually, and drove it down to the resort, where I found him right as he was coming out of the building, handed him the demo tape, met him, and he said he would call, and I really thought he wouldn't. So I'm sitting home a few weeks later, and the phone rang, and I answered, and this man on the other line said, hi, is Michelle Branch there? And I thought it was odd for an old man to be calling and asking for me. Not old man, an older man. And I was like, yeah, this is her. And he's like, hi, you remember me? It's Jeff Rabian. You gave me demo tape. And my heart dropped to the floor, and I was just like, oh my God, someone actually called back. I haven't been writing the wrong telephone number on all these tapes. And he said, you know, I really think you're talented, and I want to help you out. And I want to talk to your parents. And from then on, so it began that Jeff Rabian is still my manager 5 years later. He started asking me what my goals were as far as my career, and I told him, you know, obviously I want to make albums, and I, you know, want to try to take this to the highest level I possibly can. And he said, well, you know, we can make demos, and I'll start shopping around and showing people, showing some friends of mine in the business, and we'll see what happens. And I said, well, I don't want to make demos. I want to make an indie record. Let's do it right. We'll make like a 10-song album. You can use it as the demo, and I can sell it at my shows. And so that was the basis for my independent album, Broken Bracelet. My manager called me and said, are you sitting down? I was like, yeah. And he said, well, Hanson heard your record, Broken Bracelet, and they want you to open up for them on tour, just playing acoustic guitar. And yeah, I have to admit, being a 15-year-old girl, and you know, it was definitely very exciting. And so I packed up my guitar and headed out to California, and I opened up for Hanson. And at the end of my show, my manager came back and said, I want you to meet this man who works at Maverick Records. He came back and he said, I want to offer you a record deal. And that was it. And that's how I got my record deal with Maverick. While the paperwork was going on, they flew me out to LA, and I started meeting with producers and writers and basically anyone who they thought I could possibly somehow collaborate with. And they asked me a lot of questions. What records do you like? What do you want to sound like? Everything. And it was all very exciting. And they asked me, what song is on radio that you like right now? And I had to think for a while because there wasn't much that I really liked on the radio. But there was a BB Mac song, funny enough. I think it was called Back Here. And he said, I want to find out who produced that. And I said, all right, I think it's a man named John Shanks. And they came back and they said, John Shanks did the BB Mac song, but he's working with Stevie Nicks right now. And I went, okay, who's this guy who's doing these pop songs that sound guitar-oriented, who's working with Stevie Nicks? I couldn't believe it. I was like, I have to meet this guy. And we met and just immediately hit it off. Our first day, we wrote a song in 4 hours. We ended up finishing the album in 35 days. You can imagine that the energy that was around the project was just, it was just through the roof because everyone was so sincerely involved in it. And so they all had their hearts in it. And since it was my first record, we were just all working so quickly, and we would never stop and second guess anything we were doing because everything just seemed to be right. We were in the studio, finished mixing, and invited the whole record company down, including all the CEOs. Everyone except for Madonna basically showed up. And we set them all in a room, and they gave me the big pep talk before everyone got there. They said, you know, they're not going to let you know if it's good or not, because that means, you know, if they walk in and say it's a smash and it doesn't end up being one, it's their fault, and they're going to be really kind of wishy-washy about it. And I'm sitting here just so nervous to meet everybody, and they walk in, and we played them everywhere first, and the song stopped, and everyone kind of stood there and didn't know what to think. And here I am, this like little girl in the jeans and a t-shirt, and they're just like, what's going on here? And the head radio guy turned and looked at everyone in the room and sat up and goes, this is a fucking smash. And he goes, let's hear it again. And we just all just looked at each other like, it was a big sigh of relief. When it first came out, they said, this single has the potential audience of over 1 billion people. And that's when I was just like, whoa, what do I do now? And a lot of people who would have never even cared or heard or listened to my music were suddenly going, who's Michelle Branch? Who's this girl? I will be the first to admit that the game of love and working with Carlos Santana has made everything just open up for me. Before working with Carlos, I had 3 singles out in the States that actually did really well, but it still wasn't, something was still not there yet. And I always felt like I was kind of teetering, like just waiting to see what was going to happen. You know, it was either, all right, bye, Michelle, make your second record, or, okay, Michelle, everyone's excited, make your second record. And working with Carlos totally tipped me over the fence on the excitement side. Going into the studio at 17 and coming in off the road at 19, there's a big difference of who I was at the beginning and who I am now at the end. Seeing the world, going through different experiences, meeting all sorts of people, having really high highs and really low lows, and also sitting in a chair and talking about yourself all day. In interviews, it forces you to learn a lot about yourself and what you can handle. And I didn't have my parents out with me. I told them to stay home, and I told them that, you know, my parents, I love my parents so much, and they've been so supportive. And I feel bad for them, because when it first started, I kept saying, no, I want to do this by myself. You can't come with me. And for them to watch me my whole life and be waiting for this moment and not be able to join me, I'm sure it was really tough on them, but it was something that I had to do. So I, you know, said goodbye to them and went off on my own. And it was me on an adventure, you know, in the big bad world. And it really taught me a lot, and I really grew up a lot, and it helped me, you know, every moment of that tour helped me write this new album. It's funny because the first album was so absolutely easygoing, easy breezy, and I never thought any recording experience could be more enjoyable until this one. And then it was just like a kid in the candy store. I mean, you know, you want an orchestra? Well, you can have it. David Campbell, 22-piece orchestra. Here you go. You want to work with John Leventhal, producer? Sure. He knows who you are. He wants to work with you. It's just absolutely incredible. And not only that, but I feel like everyone who I worked with wasn't just working with me because I was Michelle Branch and this name that they now knew, but they heard my music and genuinely loved it and really wanted to make time to work with me. And that was the most flattering and exciting thing of all. Now I'm just starting to travel around, make it to other countries, make it, you know, to the UK, make it just to Italy and in Europe, and go to Asia, and I am so excited to share the record with everyone. I am just so proud of it, and I know that it's a better record than the first, and so I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping that everyone who bought the last record will buy this one and agree, and hopefully just really respond well to it, because I'm dying to get out and play these songs. I'm dying to just start all over again and go back on the road and be inspired and have more life experiences and write another record.